get your question. Not quite. So you're referring to the video game with the
Yeah,
career mode?
yeah, like, in terms of, providing gamers the opportunity to play that career mode, that road to WrestleMania, just, how would you describe your experience climbing that road in real life?
Okay, well, yeah, I think I get you now. Stop me if I'm not answering the question, but like I touched on before, staying healthy is one of the huge things here, And I mean, I just heard that, what's his name, Evan Warren just got hurt the other day, and I saw his match with Rey Mysterio on Raw, and I was so excited to see it, but I hear the guy is injured and couldn't make it today. Things like that happen every show, and we have 200 some odd shows a year. I'm about to go to Europe, we got like 14 shows in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks actually. So like staying healthy is the biggest thing, and right next to staying healthy would be staying hot. If WrestleMania is where you're looking to eventually end that feud, or start that feud, or you just want to get to that show and beyond that show, you know how it is. Just being on that show is huge. WrestleMania 20 for me, Madison Square Garden, where the first WrestleMania was. My dad watched me in the stands when he was in the first WrestleMania in that same building 20 years before. I'm in there with Ric Flair, Mick Foley, The Rock, Batista. That's that feeling that you want to get. You have that opportunity to do it, and then every year after that, you start realizing, going off the question there, I need to stay healthy to do that. Like I think who just missed WrestleMania? Someone, Candace got hurt. A couple other big names. I think Batista one year got hurt and missed out. That's just horrible. But those big injuries happen. You tear a tricep, you tear your labrum in your shoulder like I did with both of them. You're out 4 or 5 months. So if you're anywhere near that, March, April mark, if it's October, November, you're screwed, man. So staying healthy is huge. Staying hot, being involved in a storyline that's going to continue, keeping the fans involved, keeping them, wanting to see more every week. Working together with the office, the writers, and what have you, and your opponent to give the people the best case scenario as possible so that they will tune in and watch and they want to see. And then, you just let it happen. You let the magic happen. You go out there every week and, it's one day at a time, one match at a time. You're only as good as your last match. The only thing people are going to remember is the last thing you did. I landed on 10,000 thumbtacks back in 2004. That was really cool, but no one remembers. You know what I mean? They remember last week when Mike Adamley slapped me. That's all they remember. So, I get, you see what I'm saying? So you just gotta give your best performance every day. You should go to that ring. I hope people are watching and buying your stuff and loving it and wanting to see more. And then you will end up at WrestleMania.
I think Randy did a good job of pretty much covering that, but as from my point of view, growing up loving this sport, this business, that's all I ever think about. Every time I go out there, I convince myself this is WrestleMania, and I try to perform accordingly. And so every week, you just want to go out there with that same mentality and run hopefully that there's gold at the end of the road.
Randy, earlier you mentioned about how Ric Flair was kind of like a road dad. So what was the experience like working with your actual dad, within the storyline and everything like that? And also for Jack, what it's like working with someone like a Tommy Dreamer right now over in the CW?
It's unbelievable. Learn every week, and at the same time, you find out who you are and what you got to do to continue on. And can't say enough about it.
My father, I love him to death, man. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here. So him being on the road with me for that, 6 months period of time, it was really cool. It was really cool. I was in the car with him, driving up and down the road, but I'll tell you what, a couple of weeks into it, still your dad. He's still, whenever he drinks his milk at the, whenever we stop to, Waffle House or things, you eat a lot when you're on the road. You got to eat at restaurants, and you got to be with someone else. But it always would annoy me. He just gulps his milk. And then then after a couple weeks of that, I said, Dad, I can't ride with you anymore. I'm sorry. So I started riding with Chris Benoit, and I moved over and started riding with Ray. And we'd hook up every once in a while, eat, stop at Outback, or whatever. Have a good meal. But that's the fun stuff behind the scenes. We just kind of started bumping heads. And, I want to drive. Let's stay here. No, let's drive on. Oh, Dad, come on, Dad. If it wasn't for me, we'd be here, Dad. No, I didn't say that. But, in the ring, that's another story. That was awesome because I saw in him like this bright, this smile, this feeling that I'd never seen in my dad before. I grew up with him on the road coming home, but never experienced, his attitude, his feelings, the excitement he got in the ring. And we worked some big shows. I went to Europe with him. We did a 2-week tour in Europe, and we had 20,000, 18,000, 16,000 people every night over there. I was wrestling Undertaker, so I was on top. I was the main event of every show. My dad would come in and do this thing. It was just great. He would get so pumped up, and to see my dad like that, it was really great for me to see him that happy. I felt like I was giving him a little back from what he had done for me. Like I said before, obviously, if it wasn't for him, I would not have found, this opportunity here. The door would not have been open for me to bust it down if it wasn't for my dad. So I felt like I was able to give a little back, and requesting that, would it be possible for my father to, get in some kind of story with me. He was my dad. He's Cowboy Bob Orton, one of the greatest heroes in the business, and we had a lot of fun as father and son, and his partner.